Hello, everyone. Welcome again to a pre-show.
Indeed, indeed. And here you come in. You're like the committee of the Corky Collins show. You know, coming in, the nicest kids in town,
I'm
ready
not
to. What's
Corky
that?
Collins. What?
Well, he's not a real person. He was based on Dean, Buddy Dean, who had a show, a rock and roll show in Baltimore. He was the big rival to Dick Clark when Dick Clark was only in Philadelphia. And, but in the movie Hairspray, the Corky Collins show is based on the Buddy Dean show. And they had the kids who did all the dancing. They were called the committee. And they were the nicest kids in town. And they introduced to teenage Baltimore in the late 50s, early 60s, important cultural artifacts like the Madison. I bet you've never Madisoned, have you?
I haven't done a lot of things. I haven't watched Hairspray. I haven't watched Grease. I only very recently watched West Side Story. I think there's like a cutoff period in terms of musicals I've watched.
So you're opposed to movies based on hair care products? No, that's
Oh
fine.
wow! I didn't think of
We all
that.
have our
Grease and Hair.
prejudices.
Wow.
Yeah, we all have our prejudices. That's fine. The guys wore grease, the chicks wore hairspray.
For some reason, I always thought the greaser thing was like related to like car mechanics or something.
No, it was the hair.
Wow.
Greasy kid stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, you never heard that?
Greasy kid stuff. No.
You never heard that phrase?
I've heard of grease balls.
Well, that's different. That's a very rude ethnic opprobrious term that I'm frankly hurt that you used.
Me too. Absolutely.
I'm surprised you came up with that. But at any rate, not unlike Buddy Dean's committee, our patrons are the nicest kids in town. And you can see, because that's how they're dressed today. You see the two chicks over there with the bouffants, the little bows in their hair? What do you think that is? That's all early 60s stuff.
When was the Beehive popular?
The same era, the 50s into the 60s.
Hmm.
And that was sort of a cylindrical thing. And then the bouffant was this gigantic deal. Except for the ladies here this evening, my Aunt Jenny, who just passed away last March, a year ago, not that I'm still remembering and in mourning, she was the last woman I knew to wear a bouffant. And she had it all the years I knew her. And so I remember, gosh, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I was staying at a place. And I said, Auntie, you've always worn a bouffant as long as I've known you. And she said, well, is it becoming? I said, well, yeah, it is. I mean, she was a very attractive woman, and it did look very good on her. I said, have you always worn a bouffant? She said, oh, no. Just a minute, nephew. I'll be right back. And she left the room, and she came back with this old black and white photograph, and there she was with this sort of Mildred Pierce hairdo. And it was not very becoming. So I said, it's okay, Auntie. You stick with that. You stick with that bouffant.
Okay. Okay. Very good, Charles. Thank you. Thank you for that.
I'm here to help.
All right. So we've gotten a lot of new patrons this week. Thank you so much. We're moving on up. Like the Jeffersons.
Side,
That's right.
To a deluxe apartment. Oh, sorry. You were saying?
We are still so behind on questions. I'm just so sorry. We're trying to do a catch up episode. I don't like saying that because it always never leads to a joke from you. So I'll say overflow.
What?
Overflow.
I like to release it. I like your idea.
I know you do, but
So I see. So you're worried about my giving you moral support. I get it. Okay, no, that's fine.
Yeah. All right. But so yeah, I have to just. I think it's important for transparency. our schedules have sort of changed, really tight, and so it's kind of really difficult for us to get to that catch-up episode. We'll
It's true.
see. And I don't know if this is prudent. I can always edit this out later, Charles, but I guess I'll just tell the patrons at least that we have to, our schedules are really so tight right now, we're actually going to film 2 shows in a row because we can't even film this week. So I just thought
we can. We'll be able to because the
will we?
colonoscopy. Yeah, the colonoscopy is Wednesday, not next Saturday.
Oh, so you're going to be recovered.
Yeah.
By then.
So by then I'll be recovered.
Okay. Do you want prayers from the people?
What's that?
Do you want prayers from the people?
Yeah. Prayers from the people are nice. Yeah. I'm going in, ladies and gentlemen. How do I put this in a nice way? The old man is going in to get Roto-Rootered. Colonoscopy.
Oh gosh. That is so. I don't know what the word is for that.
Crude.
Patrons submit your adjectives for a future show for that.
What? I'm not looking forward to it, but ladies and gentlemen, I've never had it done before, but unfortunately, I've had some rather disturbing symptoms, which I won't bore you with the details. But suffice to say that the old man may have something rather severely wrong with him. I may not. We won't know until we find out. So, the good news, too, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are American and have had this procedure done, they kept you awake during it. Well, this is Austria. I'm going to be passed out. I'm going to be totally anesthetized.
Isn't that? I thought like it's better if you're not though. Right?
Maybe better, but that's their standard here, and
like,
I don't want to be around for none of this.
Like I market medical professionals, and you know that's one of the
Where
things.
Do you sell them?
I sell them. We have a market for medical professionals.
Is it downtown somewhere? What have I been for this osteopath? Hey.
No, but I thought like when you're awake, it's safer. Like I thought like people are more comfortable with that. Like that you're not even, because I thought that with general anesthesia, there's like more side effects and stuff like that.
Listen, everybody I know who's had it has had all sorts of horror stories to tell. I would rather go to bed and wake up with the nasty thing done.
Sure. Okay.
But it's the standard procedure here. And the other thing that's also interesting, in the States, they tell you when you turn 50, you should start having it done every 3 years. Here, they only do it if they think there's a reason to do it.
That seems more dangerous. I don't know. I mean,
maybe they live on the edge. I don't know. The Austrians, they tend to be a lot wilder than Americans.
I mean, it doesn't hurt, right? I don't know. Just do it.
What, the colonoscopy?
No, I mean, well, I'm not familiar with this. I know it's very unpleasant.
Yes.
It's
extremely unpleasant.
My mom offers her condolences to you, by the way, because she had it done and she says it's a mess.
Yeah. So I don't mind sleeping through it.
Okay.
But I hate to bring up this unpleasant subject, but your prayers are requested because, of course, there are any number of reasons why the exhibited symptoms may occur, ranging from not much to the old man. He got to pack his bag and get on the night train to the big adios.
I don't like you joking like that, Charles.
Well, I mean, look, it comes sooner or later. The point is, either way, your prayers are very much requested, because I wouldn't mind sticking around a bit longer. I'm not really keen on getting on the night train. For one thing, I don't even know what the service is like. And now that they say Pullman porters are racist, I don't know. There's this whole attack on the idea of the Pullman porter and how terrible it was.
Unbelievable.
So I don't even know what if I've got to carry my own bags on the night train to the big adios, huh? Nobody ever asks you those questions.
I know.
This is the kind of thing that keeps people with small minds awake at night.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right, questions.
Questions. Here we go.
First one's from Thomas. What are
All right.
Charles's thoughts on the TV show Little House on the Prairie, as well as the book series it spawned off of? Who is Laura Ingalls Wilder, and what was Ingalls' relationship to the Catholic faith? I thought I recalled hearing that Laura's youngest sister became a Catholic.
Well, that may well be true. The answer is I really don't know. What I do know, I didn't actually watch the show when it was on the air. One of my, well, he wasn't my classmate, he was a year behind me in high school, dated one of the stars of the show during the time. And this was a big deal because he got his picture in the Inquirer with her somewhere. Nothing like that. Nothing, it wasn't a weird shoot. It was, they were coming out of a restaurant or something. But that was about all I had to do with the TV show. As far as the books go, in our school readers, as a boy, we had selections from Little House in the Big Woods in the reader book. So I remember that. And I know that she lived in, I think, Wisconsin or Illinois, one of those places. Wisconsin, I think, the deep, dark woods. And then her father moved them out to the prairie. Hence, Little House in the Big Woods became Little House on the Prairie. And she wrote, I don't know, 3 or 4 books of reminiscences. And now you know all I know about Laura Ingalls Wilder. A lot of people swear by her. There are fan clubs. I'm quite aware of the Laura Ingalls Wilder cultus, and I'm sure it's great. Or not. I've just never read them.
Okay.
When I was a kid, I always thought they were kind of girly books. See, when I was a boy, you had guy books and girly books. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, like Ella Montgomery is for girls.
Yeah.
Anne of Green Gables.
Anne of Green Gables, really a good girls thing. I did see the movie because the wife of a friend of mine loved it, so I sat through a lot of that, and it wasn't bad. I mean, it's not like my eyes burned out or anything. But like I read the Hardy Boys. I didn't read Nancy Drew.
Of course. Yep. All right. But everything's, changing,
It is. We're going to have one now called, I don't know. Have I frozen?
No, you're fine.
We're going to have a series, alongside Drew and the Hardy Boys. There'll be Bobby, because that would be either one. Bobby Jones, non-binary kid detective.
Bobby Jones.
Non-binary, Bobbie, non-binary kid detective. And the person has a gang of kids that they run with. One's trans, one's undecided, one's undeclared. And they're able to solve mysteries because they can go anywhere. No one dares refuse them entrance for fear of being sued. The suspected embezzler goes into the Metropolitan Club downtown. The kid tries to follow him. What?
Fix your camera. I want to see your face. There we go.
The kid tries to follow the guy into the club. And the man at the door stops him. He says, "I'm sorry, kid, you can't get in here." Oh, it's because I'm non-binary. Oh, I'm sorry. And he takes the knee, and the kid passes by and follows the would-be criminal. This would be great. This idea has legs. This Tumblr House should get behind this. The first kid detective series for non-binaries. Man, there's money lying in the street for you with that. Just scoop it up.
The lines between satire and reality are completely blurring.
Oh, I know.
Where, like, I mean, you say this, but then it might be a thing,
I know that I put out this thing because I didn't know it was true or not. Turns out this comedian named Andrew Doyle has a gag Twitter account, Titania McGrath, and she was complaining about dog owners who say "Hey boy" or "Hey girl" to their non-binary pets.
Yeah, and that was my reaction. I actually thought that was real.
I did too. I did too. I mean, it's. I'll tell you, it's so crazy. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. Stay sane inside insanity.
I saw a picture, I don't know if I showed you, but on Twitter, I showed a tweet from the World Health Organization, and it had this giant board meeting with the big wigs, and right behind them is this giant statue of Shiva. And my first reaction was, oh, that's photoshopped. I mean, that's obvious. I mean, it just sticks out like a sore thumb. I mean, this giant statue of Shiva in this corporate boardroom, like that doesn't even, it's just out of place, completely out of place. But then I realized, oh, that's actually their tweet. That's actually, I don't know. I don't know what to say to this anymore.
Well, as I say, take a deep breath.
Is Shiva at least like is he a destroyer god, or is he a good
Destroyer.
god?
Destroyer.
So the World Health Organization has the destroyer god behind them. They worship the destroyer god.
Well, I wouldn't say they worship. Let's just say they find him an interesting conversation piece. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. You see, one thing you got to remember, and I'm going to say something that's going to sound very horrific for a lot of people. But have you ever noticed how many medical people are Indian?
My doctor's Indian. He's a great doctor, actually, Dr. Shah.
Of course he is. They're very good. They're very good doctors. And Indians as a whole. I mean, I've got an Indian godson. They're great people. That's not my point. My landlord back in beautiful Monrovia is a Sikh.
Yeah.
No. But my point is that the WHO, like all the other UN buildings, gets stuff donated to them, both by governments and individuals, especially artwork.
Mm.
Well, given the large number of Indians that go to the medical profession, you really don't think that somebody would have donated a Shiva statue to the World Health Organization? Now, I'm not saying this as an exculpatory excuse, because the truth is I have no idea why it's there. Maybe they are worshiping it. Maybe when the camera isn't there, they cut open virgins and, sacrifice them to Shiva. But unfortunately, there's no way to know. And the possibility that they're, all kidding aside, the possibility that they're using it for religious purposes seems a bit less likely to me than that it was donated by some Indian doctor and placed there by somebody who just thought it looked neat.
That's possible, but the double standard of it, rubs me the wrong way. Like, let's get a crucifix back there.
Well, let's get
the Sacred Heart. How is that for a medical?
You're quite right. You're quite right. The double standard is certainly there. They wouldn't have put a statue of the Virgin there. So I can't argue with you on the double standard. But the point I'm making is that, again, I hate to quote Sherlock Holmes, but, before you look at the wild and the crazy, look at the likely. But sometimes the likely isn't true.
Got it.
So, and again, as I say, the worst fears of everyone may be true, and they're plotting how to sacrifice everybody to Shiva. I don't know. And I mean, certainly, one of the problems in times like this is that the borders between catastrophe, conspiracy, and stupidity blur so much that you would have to be God himself or directly involved to really know what the story was. You know how long I've worked for the World Health Organization?
0 years.
Exactly. You know how much I know about their inner workings?
Nothing.
I know they're in Geneva.
Okay.
If you want to know about the UN, the man to talk to is my good friend Austin Roos. And if you can't talk to him, go to his website, cfam, You'll find out all about the UN.
Austin Roos, yeah. I've seen that name a lot of places. I think he's an author, isn't he?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
writes a lot.
Yeah.
Really bright guy. Smarter than I am. Not that I'm jealous or annoyed.
Fake humility. We don't have time for that, Charles.
Ain't nobody got no time for that.
All right. Question from Dane.
Dame, yes, let's hear it.
How are human rights understood from a Catholic traditionalist / monarchist perspective compared to that of our contemporary Enlightenment perspective? How ought we examine those Confederate Catholics like Father Abram Ryan and many more who supported the Confederate cause? Given the slavery issue, can we really view them in a favorable manner?
Well, you've got three different questions there. As far as the Enlightenment is concerned, their view of the human being, of course, is quite different from that of the traditional one, which is that human beings are children of God. They derive their value from their Creator. The Enlightenment had several different ways of defining the human being, the sovereign individual and so forth, except that it didn't really hold up. The Enlightenment was a bit hypocritical. Everyone's entitled to rights except those who aren't. Under the traditional Christian understanding, nobody was entitled to rights except what their duties gave them. Rights and duties being completely interconnected. Now then, the Confederacy and slavery. Well, this is a question that's been asked before, and I will answer it, I guess, the way I did before. Slavery in and of itself and by itself was never considered by the church to be inherently evil, but to be in a position to give rise to a lot of evils. You might say that once upon a time, the church tolerated slavery, but forbade usury. Now, the core teachings haven't changed, but today the church, as a practical matter, forbids slavery, but tolerates usury, even though the basic teachings on the two have not changed. So after that, it became entirely a question of how slavery was going to be handled. And the fact is that in Catholic countries, when slavery revived, after the slave ships came to the west coast of Africa and bought the cargo that was sold to them by the kings of Africa, said kings no longer having their markets in the north because of the revolt of the Tuareg tribes that cut off the caravan routes that allowed them to sell their human produce up north. They had all of this product, if you'll pardon the expression, and nowhere to sell it. And then the Europeans appeared. Well, in the Catholic countries, the church heavily affected legislation, which is why in Catholic countries you'll find that where slavery occurred, you'll find that the racial boundaries are very blurred. That goes directly back to the things like the French Code Noir and so on, that required the free fathers of children upon slaves to treat them as their own children. In Protestant areas, it was very different. And that is why very often you would have people selling their own children into slavery or to other owners. By the same token, slavery itself in the United States underwent kind of a change, apparently. I'm not really clear on the details. But in 1830, they were dreadfully afraid of slave uprisings. By the time the Civil War came along, they were not. I don't know why. And of course, there were no slave uprisings during the war between the states. Now, what are we to think of Father Abram Ryan and Catholics who supported the Confederacy. Pretty much what we're supposed to think of the then Father Ireland, later Archbishop Ireland of St. Paul, Minnesota, and the Catholics who supported the Union. They supported their country. They fought for it, and they often died for it on both sides. It was the worst and most horrible war this country has ever gone through. And one of the ways that it was healed to a degree was through the acceptance by both sides of the other's right to honor its dead as heroes. And that's what they did. And that, the end result of it was that 50 years later, you have the great reunion at Gettysburg where people who had actually been there and done the fighting and dying, well, not the dying, they wouldn't have been there, but the fighting and the getting wounded, ran into each other's arms. I've always thought that the recent attempt to call Confederates traitors and all that kind of thing, which was certainly frowned upon by the Union folk that fought in that war. I mean, I'm not talking about people living a long time later whose ancestors weren't connected to it. I'm talking about people who did the fighting and dying. You know, they were of a very different mind. I've always had a problem with the moral superiority assumed by moderns over the past. You know, when you're knee deep in baby blood, you're not really the best judge of the past. They would have found us, both Union and Confederate, barbarous, cruel, and disgusting. I would tend to go along with their opinion of us. I really would. And we only get more so. So let's knock down those Confederate statues. That way we can feel virtuous. Let's hope that our descendants are more understanding of what we are than we are to the men we're beholden to for what we have.
Okay, you had talked about, a little bit about usury in the beginning, which sparked a memory. Because
not a flashback, I hope.
No, not a flashback. We received a comment on, because somebody asked us a week or two ago about Islamic banking, non-usurious banking.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's right. They said a very interesting piece. You're right.
And yeah.
Did you read that?
I don't know where it is.
If you don't have
it, doesn't matter. But basically, the guy explained how conceptually it works. Basically, it's a fixed fee up front, so that the interest doesn't sort of marinate. It doesn't stack up over time and get worse and worse. So I just thought that was very interesting. The flat fee up front.
And the bank becomes a sort of co-investor.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah.
So, that was good information. Dane has a follow-up question. What is your opinion on historian Shelby Foote? Reliable or not?
You know what? I don't know. I really don't. I've never read any of his books. I know that's going to sound terrible, but I haven't. I've seen some clips of him on I've seen some clips of him on my mind has really gone blank. The Civil War, the documentary on PBS. And I also saw him in that Huey Long special PBS did. So I know he was established in a niche as a Southern historian. But I really can't tell you if he's reliable or not.
Right. Question from Carl.
Yep.
Hello, Charles and Vincent from the Niagara region of the province of Ontario.
Oh, the Lord Mayor of Niagara, the only one in all Canada.
I was curious if Charles enjoys engaging in debate. I'd very much enjoy watching him debate someone like Father Gregory Pine. Dominican friar of Pints with Aquinas fame, on the topic of ultra-realism versus moderate realism. If not, does he know of anyone who could? God bless you both, and good luck with your studies, Charles.
Thank you, and God bless you. Well, the answer to both is no. I don't enjoy debates. And don't get me wrong, I'm not bad at them. The problem is that, how do I put it? I've been in many of them. I've been in a few. I've actually been in a couple where I won with an audience that you wouldn't have thought I would have been likely to have won with. But it was because of tricks. You know, it doesn't lend itself. That venue, in my experience anyway, does not really lend itself to getting the truth out.
It's gamesmanship, you're saying.
Yeah. I've had the other problem I've had in debating with Catholics on different topics has been, how do I put it? I'm an historian. I'm not a philosopher. I'm not a theologian. I'm not much of an abstract thinker, to be brutally frank. So what I find is that when I've indulged in such debates, they'll be bringing up what so-and-so wrote, to which I'll respond with what happened. Which is not, I mean, my major interest in philosophy really came from its effect upon history. Because as certain philosophies were more or less dominant at different times in history, they have had enormous results on society. So, for instance, the medieval state, in a lot of ways, if you could call it that, was kind of a Neoplatonic archetype. Now, mind you, people didn't sit around calling it that, but that's really what it was. Aristotelianism became popular alongside the rise of the modern state, the centralized beauty that we now enjoy today over many centuries. Was there a causal connection between the two? I don't know, but it certainly looks interesting. So this is where my interest has come from. I'm not as much interested in ultra-realism as I am in ultra-realists, or Thomism as I am in Thomists. If that makes sense to you. Probably a failing on my part, but okay. I'm not much of an abstract thinker.
Okay, Charles, okay, so be it. But real talk. You ready? You ready for some real talk?
Yeah, sure.
I wish you would debate people on monarchism.
I have. And the same thing happens. They'll bring up Jefferson. They'll bring up Henry VIII. They'll bring up they'll bring up the ideals of the Enlightenment, or they'll bring up, they may sometimes, if they're smart, they'll bring up a papal encyclical. Or they'll go off into things like a Catholic libertarian state or a Catholic republic. Any of those things have
and those are stupid, right? I mean, and they just out themselves.
I know they're stupid. But the problem is, I look at that and I say, okay, look, you've got almost 2 centuries of Catholic monarchy to look at against some ideal state that's never existed. What Catholic republic has ever lasted longer than 100 years? And if you say Argentina or Brazil, I'll say which one? I mean, which Argentine republic? Which Brazilian republic? Because, and they just don't last long because there's nothing to hang them on.
Well,
there's no tradition to them.
So don't you just have to bottle that then? You know, you just do it over and over, and you have things that there's no answer to. So isn't that
and that's enjoyable? How? I said I didn't enjoy it. The question was, do I enjoy debating? Do I like debating? No, I don't.
Okay, well let's.
Do you think I like dumping on people?
Okay.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
I like
Charles.
teasing them.
Fair
wouldn't
enough.
know that.
Okay, on a personal level, you don't like it, you don't enjoy it, you don't.
No,
Blah
that
blah
was
blah.
the question.
Okay, well, I'm changing it up now. Do you think debates are worthwhile? Do you think it's worthwhile to debate people on monarchism? See, look at that. I can see you. There's this inherent reluctance, and you're trying to come up with some wishy-washy objection. And
I don't like being mean. Now,
what?
how's that wishy-washy?
You don't like being mean,
I don't like being mean.
but it's effective. What if it's effective, Charles?
I'm afraid the ends do not justify the means.
Yeah, one of our patrons called me like a Machiavellian ruler. I guess that's the difference between us. I'm more Machiavellian, and you're just some sort of I don't know what the word is, but
Annoying person?
just I don't know. You're too nice. You're too nice. That's your problem, Charles. You're too nice. I remember one time you were really at one of our epic Tumblr parties. You said, "You know what your problem is, Vinny?" This was like 15 years ago too. You said, "You know what your problem is? You're too darn earnest." And you were totally like lit. And
I'm sure I was.
And so I wasn't. I wasn't at all. And I was like, gosh, I don't know how I feel right now, because Charles, he said something I deemed to be completely accurate, and I haven't even realized this about myself. But it's coming from him in this state. I don't know how to feel about this. But
well, it's not a bad thing. I mean, it's what's made you the multi-million dollar not crime boss. We don't use that word. Capo del Turicapi that you are today.
Entrepreneur.
That's it. I knew there was a word that sounded better than all those trashy words of the movies.
Yeah. Okay, so you. I mean, come on. I'm not letting you go on this. Do you feel a debate would be effective or no?
It would depend on the topic. It would depend. I mean, look, the last debate of this nature I had was sometime in the past year. I had on somebody's podcast.
And let's say you didn't like the guy.
What's that?
Let's say you didn't like the guy either, because that seems to be the problem too. That you
What's
like the guy. That you like the
I like
person.
the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the person. I don't. Oh, I'm just an old softy. Ho, 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 ho. But you know that's. I guess part of the problem is what I see, because the people who want to do these things are all a lot younger than I am, and they're so earnest, and they're so sure, and they're just they're out to conquer the world because they've got it figured out. And boy, I remember what that was like. I really do. God bless them. Those are the people that get things done before they figure out how screwed up life really is. Then they got to say, why did I waste my time? But no, that's not true. But seriously, it's very hard to raid on those parades, to be honest with you. It really is. I mean,
misguided compassion. Misguided compassion. You have misguided compassion. Oh, poor poor so and so. I'm going to rain on his parade. What about the bigger picture?
Well, the bigger picture can take care of itself. The bigger picture should be sending me checks. That's what the bigger picture should be doing. Stop whining. Should stop whining and start sending money.
Oh man! All right, Charles, you're being difficult, but we'll let you be. All right.
Hey, the universe is supposed to provide. I know that as a child of the 60s.
All right. Question from let's see here. Question from Katie. In February, one of my daughters noticed that the liturgical calendar from the Transalpine Redemptorists on Papa Stranze has something called Little Christmas, listed on the 25th of every month. This was something new to me, and I didn't know what it meant. Fortunately, these monks are now live streaming daily devotions on their YouTube channel, and they explained this observance. It's a Carmelite tradition a monthly remembrance of our Lord's birth, for which they offer a votive Mass of Christmas, and have a procession of the Infant of Prague, imploring him for temporal assistance and vocations to their order. My question is this. Are there any domestic traditions associated with observing Little Christmas? Should we sing a medley of Christmas songs after dinner, or always pray the joyful mysteries on that day? The children agree that having cookies should be a part of any such observance. Cute.
I think so. Definitely. Well, if you want to start it, I mean, there's nothing against starting a tradition like that. And who knows? I mean, your children might very well carry it on to their adult lives. You never get too much Christmas, in my humble opinion.
Well, that's true. I mean, we still have our Christmas lights up. But
yeah, I noticed.
Let me ask a totally disingenuous devil's advocate question.
I've never heard of such a thing.
Wouldn't this sort of tradition undermine the liturgical calendar? Doesn't each thing have a proper place?
It does, but the thing about that, the reason why the Carmelites do that is that they're particularly devoted to the mystery of the Incarnation of the Nativity. And, as long as you make sure that you give pride of place to whatever the feast is, it's... you may have noticed all these years, I am not what you would call in favor of one-size-fits-all solutions.
Okay.
If it works, it works. If it doesn't, I'm against it.
Very good. All right, a final question for the pre-show is perhaps the longest question we've ever received. Ever.
Oy.
I need to change position to get through this
I
one.
need to go take a nap. No, let's see what it is.
Okay, and it's from Nicholas, who has been an incredibly generous patron.
Oh, all right, Nicholas. Yes, absolutely. You are so correct. Yes.
Okay, well, let me read the question first, Charles. But I like where your head's at. Yeah,
he's an incredibly generous patron. Yeah, you bet, boss. Whatever you say.
All right. So he says, "Hello, gentlemen. I have a bit of an issue floating around my mind, and with the permission of Mr. Vincent, the mental hygienist, Franchini, I would certainly be glad to hear Charles weigh in on my predicament, or even invite both of you to do so. I'm currently in my later half of university, and will soon make my way to follow in my father's footsteps and attend law school. Luckily for me, I will be able to find work with my family in private practice, but before I would do so, I had always wanted to serve my country in some capacity. I've always loved naval history and tradition, and a number of my family has served, so I had been hard set on applying for the U.S. Navy Judge Advocate General Corps, JAG, which would allow me to serve in the branch of my idolization, along with acting as a catalyst for a legal career. Though as of late, unfortunately, I am not so hard set on it as I was in high school. I am approaching 21 years of age, and I have seen our nation drastically and swiftly change from the one I was born in, though I am sure Charles feels this more than I. My family and I now oftentimes selectively choose companies to buy from, selectively finding alternatives to Amazon, for example, where before in my early youth that was not an issue. We now must selectively act in society in the hope to avoid as much of this drastic change and influence as we can, and that is present here in the idea of military service. I think I've always had this issue in the back of my mind, but just a day ago, as of writing this, I had read that the Navy is now adding to its reading lists a book discussing how to be, quote, anti-racist, and the continued racial discussion that plagues our nation. I have thought about Charles's value of oaths in a strict manner, apparently due to his French heritage, when he has spoken about some individuals' elastic concept of oaths. I share this belief in oaths, and I must have also gained this concept from the fair amount of French blood I have been given from my family. I have also thought about how far the Constitution has been twisted and turned over by our ruling class, and the thought of how much more we have yet to see. I worry that if I'm to take the oath, and serve on that day with an already twisted and manipulated constitution that I am already not fond of, it will get immensely worse, and the constitution I took an oath towards is beyond recognizable. But even though I know it is not the same, that is not how the law will see it. I also worry that in a legal capacity, serving for the military, of what I may be expected to do in service in maybe 5 years' time. The military does not at all appear to be a conservative institution nowadays, and I certainly worry about what may be expected of me as this whole woke culture continues to spread. I still desire to serve ever since I was young. I have thought in my mind that I may very well grow old regretting not actually serving in the military in any capacity. On one hand, I like to think I may be able to get 4 years in fairly uneventfully and leaving knowing I served in some capacity. On the other hand, a lot of nonsense can happen in 4 years. Nonsense that I would be oath-bound to. I'm not entirely sure what to do. I've had a set plan and goal since high school, and now I am stuck questioning it. And not like with many college students where they're changing up their focus of study willy-nilly, but because of out of control all of this is. I understand that I need to make the decision, but any thoughts or advice would certainly help in making that decision. So I'm asking for whatever you may be able to give me with this issue I have. I understand I've given a pretty lengthy question, and I apologize for not making it as concise as I probably could have made it, but I figure detail may help in giving good thoughts and advice. And in all honesty, as a paying patron, I'm really not all that sorry. Nonetheless, at the very least, thank you for reading through my question.
Very good.
Sorry, not sorry. I love that.
That's all right. Well, you can tell he's real Tumblr House material.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, Nicholas, this is an excellent question. I have been asked it before, and I am as nonplussed, frankly, as you are, and other people have asked me it. If I were a young man your age now, everything you've said is a valid concern. Every single thing you have said. I would be very, very hard put to it. One thing you might consider, depending on whether or not your state has one, I don't know what state you live in, but if you live in a state that has either a state guard or, even better, one of the few that has a naval militia, you might consider joining that. They can't be federalized. And you get a certain amount of military training. That might be one option. But I know exactly how you feel, you know? And of course, on the other hand, there's the question of where you would get that kind of training anyway. You certainly can't get it outside of the military, and it might come in handy one day. But then there's the question of the oath, you know? Oh, Nicholas, I'm sorry that you have to go through this. I'm sorry for every public-spirited young man in this country of ours that is faced with the same dilemma. I can only say that if I were you and I were in your shoes, I probably could not take that oath today. But I'm not happy in saying that, and I'm not advising you not to. You know, these days we have too many people who are quick to bind everyone else with their choices.
That's for sure.
Yep. You make a prudential choice, a prudential judgment based on the best judgment you can make, depending on the circumstances as you see them. The problem with being too quick to jump over other people's choices is that you are presuming that you know for certain that you're right. The problem with the nature of a prudential judgment is that you can't know that this side of the grave. You have to make one. You can't just sit there. You got to do something. Sometimes these things come down to flipping a coin. What I would do is, you're 21, so you don't have to do it immediately. Why don't you, at the very least, if you know anybody in the Navy right now, see if you can get in touch with somebody. I don't mean anybody in authority. I mean, a junior officer, an able seaman, or somebody, and kind of monitor them over the next year and see how things work out. That might help you make a clearer decision. Because remember, we're only so far into the Harris administration. I think things might be a lot clearer in a year. So that might be a thought. But you've got my prayers, Nicholas. You and all your brethren across the country. When they said they were going to purge the military of extremists, my blood ran cold. Because there aren't many. I mean, the way they define extremists now, you would have had to have gotten rid of 4/5 of the armed forces when I was a cadet. In 1978, 79, 78, I took the oath. You'd have had to get rid of 4/5 of the armed forces, and yet somehow the world didn't end. Somehow white supremacists didn't take over the country. Quite the contrary. If the military were what the civilian leadership imagined it to be, they'd all be in prison. But it's not. It's very malleable, as it always has been. I mean, that's the nature of the American military. Regardless of Confederate flags among the Marines or blah, 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 the oh so precious persons in the White House and the Capitol sent the young men to die, and the young men saluted and went to die. That was it.
Alrighty.
Yep, that'll do it.
All right. This question reminded me of something I was talking about with my brother over Easter. We had a very interesting discussion, and we were talking about integralism. And I forgot. My brother had mentioned that Adrian Vermeule, is that how you say it? Vermeule?
Adrian Vermeule, yeah.
Yeah, the integralist Harvard professor was not recently, but has historically attacked Scalia for, I guess, not being integralist. I had read Scalia's, I guess, latest sort of book after his death, On Faith, it's called, and I got a pretty good picture of his worldview. And there are obviously notable differences between his worldview and integralism. But I had personally felt that being in that position as a judge, that was the best you can do as an originalist, right? He's an originalist, right? Original intent. Isn't that what you call it? Original?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and so that sort of, I didn't understand how an integralist could attack Scalia for being an originalist because, I don't know, it seemed like the best thing. So my question is, as a judge, can you be an integralist?
Well, you see, you bring up an important question. The thing I would say is this. As we know, the judiciary, Scalia's view as an originalist, was very much a minority.
Yeah.
The judges today, for the most part, certainly on the Supreme Court, are would say whatever pops into their heads, whatever they think is good or bad. It has no relationship to objective reality. The difference between them and Scalia is that Scalia attempted to subordinate whatever he might have believed to the Constitution. His colleagues on the bench had no such interest. So, Do I think an integralist would be bound the way Scalia was? No, why should they be? Nobody else is. But would an integralist ever get put on the court? Of course not.
I still need to learn a lot more about integralism. I can't wait to read this book that I've got on it, that I purchased for the store.
It is, and I want to say something else too about that, about integralism. Now, I'm very sympathetic to it myself, but I have seen the way people go after pro and con, hammer and tongs on the internet. They just really slam each other around. Maybe I'm too nice, but if you don't have a snowflake's chance in Las Vegas of getting what you want across, and the other person is in the same position, but your views are different, what are you fighting over? If you have the same religion, what are you fighting over? Which snowflake melts faster?
One of the most interesting lessons I learned from college, I took a class on how to handle conflict, in given different contexts, and one of the things I'll never forget, they said if you find yourself in a really serious argument with another person 3 or more times, the argument isn't actually over content. It's like over power or something else. It's not over the content, or ego or something. I found that fascinating. So that's such a good and important life lesson, I think, for people to realize what you're doing. Why you're doing what you're doing. I mean, for me, I used to be that guy, but then it's just, after a point in time, it's like, well, nothing happens, and this is exhausting. So I can't do the crusader mentality anymore.
You've decided the Declaration of Independence was sent by Satan. I've decided it came from the Holy Ghost.
Wow, that's the best clickbait in the world, Charles. Wow, thank you for doing that. The Constitution of the United States, sent by Satan or the Holy Ghost.
Well,
that's gonna get like 1 million views.
You would probably. That would be clickbait, without a doubt. That would be clickbait.
Wow, we have to do a segment. Somebody submit a question so we can do this, and I can create this video and create like the best thumbnail in the world for it, and just make it so dramatic, and then we'll like double our subscribers to the channel.
No, yeah, the subscribers go to 50,000 on that. But the thing is that let's pretend for a moment though those are our actual opinions. You know what? It doesn't matter. We go to the same mass.
Why doesn't it matter? The truth matters.
It matters. But you, O Catholic monarchist, and I, O Catholic Republican, we go to the same mass. We believe the same creeds. And neither of us have a snowball's chance in Vegas of getting our particular views across in Washington.
But Republicans, the fruit of their beliefs is bad fruit, like Vatican II. Is that what you want again? You want Vatican II in state form? You want this to happen?
I would feel it was more of an interesting fight if we were in a position of replacing the current regime. Until and unless that time ever comes. I mean, I don't mind discussing our differing views and presenting our whys and wherefores. What I'm against is our excommunicating each other and going after each other with hammer and tongues when neither of us have any chance at all at the moment of our ideas coming to any kind of fruition. Who would I be to excommunicate you, or vice versa, over something of this sort? Who would I be? What kind of a moron would I be? I know, all too common. Thank you. The point is that it's wrong. I'm all for civilized discussion. I'm all for bringing up the different points. but these endless crusades and these include me out.
Okay. I guess the one last thing I'll say in terms of this, I don't know, especially it comes to do with monarchism too a lot, because I think a lot of people get hung up because it's like, well, it's not pragmatic to be monarchist because it's not like we're going to have a monarchy, in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, blah, blah, blah. To which I say, well, I haven't said this, but the thought occurred to me this week. It takes time for principles to percolate into and to really, so you can see the true fruits of what they bring, like the Enlightenment, for example, the fruits of enlightenment, which lead to relativism, which lead to all these things. That took a long time to realize, for it to be absolutely clear that enlightenment is destructive.
It takes a very long time,
and conversely, it would take a long time for monarchist principles to result in something good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want the world to be Catholic.
And the getting there might not be fun. But the trick right now is to be Catholic.
Yeah.
Get that underway. Look, I've said it before, I'll say it again. If this country were converted to the Catholic faith, her institutions would follow.
Yeah.
Catholic monarchy did not predate Catholic nations. It was the other way around.
Right.
Peoples became Catholic and their institutions followed the faith. So, it's not like it's an all-important point. And I think it's what's missing from a lot of the debate, Catholic monarchist versus Catholic republic, integralist versus originalist, this, that, blah, 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 blah. You're not getting anywhere until the country itself is Catholic. And then when it is, organically, the institutions will shape themselves, almost.
Yeah. That's why, again, I don't know if we're 100% on the same page, but, when it comes to things like, we're starting a monarchist movement, monarchist group, I don't know. I guess that's fine. But for me, I'm more excited about, like, creating, like, an adoration group, or... You know what I mean? Like really helping the spiritual life of everybody. You need to walk before you can run.
I'm all for both. And even, of course, when you start a monarchist group, like any other political group, the political always has to be secondary to the religious. But the religious can't simply exist in a vacuum. Church and state are like body and soul, despite. I mean, this is why you can't really ever have separation of church and state, because all of us live in both.
Yeah.
We're subject to the state, and we're children of the church. So the only way church and state could be fully separate is for each of our bodies and souls to be severed from one another. And you know what that would mean? Not that there aren't a lot of people who wouldn't mind having that happen.
Yeah. One last thing for real this time. One of the things that you see, monarchist versus integralist, Republican versus monarch, this versus that for that versus that. It's shocking to me sometimes how you will repeat something over and over again, and sometimes I get nervous because it's like, well, we've already said that 50 times, and people know it already, but apparently that's not true. So I'm going to say it right now, what this illustrates. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Very true.
And we see that everywhere, and nobody wants to abide by that,
Well, no, because everyone knows best. See, one of the other funny things you'll find is a lot of people who consider themselves democratic, or not democratic, sorry, Catholic, or traditionalist, or monarchist, or whatever you want to call it, they like to think. I mean, they like the smells and bells, they like the pageantry and all that. But if there's anything they don't like, it's the hierarchy. Everyone becomes his own pope. Everyone becomes his own emperor. and it's all what I think. Well, you know what? To the degree that you know something, your opinion may have more weight to the degree that I don't. But at the end of the day, your opinion and my opinion are just that, opinions. And I'm afraid you and I cannot be judge, jury, and executioner for each other, however much we might deeply desire that role.
Hmm.
It really isn't given to us. And yet we do. However, if any of this bothers you, ladies and gentlemen, if you feel that perhaps you're being picked on, if, as with myself, you tend to go that route sometimes, look at it this way. We know that our methods have been successful because of where we are now.
I fantasized about telling people that snidely, like especially Vatican II people. Like, oh, why? You want to continue going this because it's been doing this because it's been going so well? Is that why we want to go down this route? Because it's working great. It's
Well,
working
yes,
wonderfully.
the guitar mass is going to bring in the young people.
No, it's not the guitar mass. It's about we need fellowship and we need greeters. You need greeters at the front so that there's that feeling of welcoming.
So the greeters are the ones who take the money.
Well, yeah, people will give more
With
money
greed.
because the greeters are friendly.
Greedy.
No,
Greedy. They're greeters.
Oh, greed is good.
And so they meet them at the church door with their hand out.
Wow.
That would bring people in.
I'll never think of handout in the same way. Wow, they have their handout. Okay.
The greeters. I could have been a greeter.
All right, we're starting to babble. It's been over an hour.
Yes,
but there's more to come.
Enough. Even though you're beautifully dressed, you nicest kids in town, you. Gosh, you know what? Just because you're dressed this way this week, ladies and gentlemen, during the intermission, go ahead in your seats where you're standing, do the Madison. See you in a few minutes.